Technology is a tool. Creativity is a reflection of the Creator. And when our churches combine those two things in an effort to magnify the gospel message, great things happen, all for God's glory. Hey guys, Ryland here. Welcome back to another church tech tour. This time it's a special one, and it's been a long time coming. We're going to do a tech tour of my church, Central Baptist Church, right here in Owasso, Oklahoma. I've been here 13 years, but Central's been around since 1963, and it has changed a lot over the years. And in the last 13 that I've been here, we've made a lot of improvements trying to make the most of our smallish budget on a yearly basis to create a great worship environment, using arts, using technology to enhance the message of the gospel. So it's not perfect, but I thought I might as well take you along for the ride, show you behind the scenes of everything tech right here at Central Baptist. So let's kick things off with audio. When I first got here, we were running a very old Allen & Heath analog board with just some JBL speakers on sticks on each corner of the stage. Since then, we've installed EV line arrays in our worship center. We've upgraded to the Midas M32 that we've had for about 10 years now, and it's still going strong. And overall, I'm really happy with where we're at with the audio, but we can always improve. And we all know that great sound in your room starts with treating the room. Luckily in our room, it's pretty dead in here. And that's thanks to the many assortment of acoustic treatment on the walls, a giant fire-rated black curtain that's on the back of our stage, carpet throughout, padded chairs. All those things really help to contribute to a good starting point for our room. I feel like there's some weird bass muddiness that can happen at times, but that may be our system, I don't know. Everything is mono in the room with the 3 different arrays and the front fills. It's all just easier to be mono. That's something I'd like to explore, maybe changing in the future to either LCR or some kind of left-right combo thing. Comment below what you guys use in a room like this, what your recommendations would be. But the M32 is doing everything for us on a Sunday morning, the in the room and our broadcast mix. Now I've got a full video showing how we do the broadcast mix with this board. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but here is just the surface level of how we do this. We use 2 stereo buses that feed into 1 stereo matrix, which then goes over to our ATEM. The reason we do that is I found for our setting, we like to have our drums set up as a pre-fader bus that's stereo, that's not affected by what they do in the house. And then our stereo bus for all other instrumentation that includes things like our audience mics and other stuff, stereo guitar, stereo piano, key stuff, that all is on that second bus, and those feed together in the matrix. And I think that's worked better to get a more consistent mix from sound guy to sound guy, depending on how they're mixing drums in the room. In-ears are all controlled by the P16s, which honestly I really enjoy, not having to have my guys back here fiddle with anything like that. When I go play out at other places, it's almost annoying to try and mess with iPads or get the sound guy to do things. I'm just so used to having my preset saved on my P16, and then my players can save their own presets between. And that just may be because I'm a creature of habit, but it just works. So we've been happy. The P16s do feed into our wireless in-ear monitors on stage, that all of our units, our receivers, are on stage to just kind of mitigate any interference stuff, because those are on individual antennas. Speaking of antennas and microphones, we are still using the Shure ULX S4s for almost all of our microphones, actually all of our microphones in the room. Using Beta 87A capsules with those, and those are feeding into a antenna distro that's on each side of our booth. We rarely have issues, and I've been really happy since we installed the antenna distro. A couple more things with audio over here. We do run an SPL metering app to record and graph each service. That is using an iTest mic that plugs in with a lightning cable to this iPad over here. That will graph out our services, so I can track kind of between sound guys who's doing what, and just as a level of confidence that I can say they're doing things the right way and we're not getting too loud in the room. We do have a few audience mics. Only 2 of them are being fed into the broadcast. Those are up right behind our center cluster on each side, a stereo pair of shotgun mics. But we do have a couple of audience mics back here on each corner of the media booth. Those automatically record to the thumb drive on the M32. That companion is set up to start and stop that recording. The reason I do that is so I can actually hear what the room sounds like if I want to. Go back into Logic Pro, into our multi-track recording, which is happening over on this iMac right here. And then I can just solo out those and actually listen. Or I can just pull the thumb drive out, put it into my computer's USB or my truck's USB on the way home and listen to what it sounds like in the room. Because we all know the broadcast mix doesn't always represent what's actually happening in the room. And the other thing that iMac does is it feeds our Spotify stuff to our hallway 70 volt system is I think what they are, the daisy chain, ceiling mounted speakers. This gray little mixer right here in the rack is just simply so they can swap between the Spotify signal and the board mix. So when the service starts, they just swap that over. That way out in the hallways and the lobbies, you get the board mix of what's happening in the room. It's actually the stream mix, so that it coincides with what's on the TVs in the lobbies as well. Another cool audio trick that we use is I have a wireless talkback foot switch that whenever I engage it, it disables my microphone in the house. It turns on a little alert light back here, and it feeds my vocal now from my wireless mic into a couple speakers back here, so my pro presenter and my audio guy can hear. If something goes wrong, if I need to just relay a message real quick, I can do that and then just hit my wireless foot switch and it disengages, and now I'm back in the house. Full video on how that's all set up, linked in the description. But audio is a full volunteer position. We've got about 4 guys that rotate on this, and we're able to get a pretty consistent mix week to week thanks to the way that we've got it all set up. All right, so let's talk about our video system. The heart of it really starts with the ATEM 2ME. We used to have a combination of 2 Studio HDs that we kind of linked together in a weird way. This has been a much more streamlined solution for not that much more money after selling the others off. And since we were already in the ecosystem of having separate recording and streaming devices, this worked well for us. So we have the ATEM 2ME, which has 20 inputs, 12 outputs. It's all SDI, even the multi-views are SDI, which is annoying. And then that feeds into our HyperDeck Mini, which records onto SD cards, and then goes off to our Web Presenter HD, which sends to Restream. Restream is then hitting YouTube, Facebook, and it could do our website as well. The screens you're seeing consist of the multi-views for the ATEM 2ME that coincide with our Stream Deck button layout, so that way what you see up there on the screen is where your buttons are. We are controlling everything with the Stream Deck with lots of different actions through Companion to kind of make things work for us the best way. This screen right here is just our Mac Mini that's giving us ATEM software control. We can check YouTube, do little things that we need to do on it. This tiny little screen right here is just showing what's on the hallway feed live that's sending out over SDI to all the different TVs throughout our building. We'll just swap between a Pro Presenter announcement layer feed that's always going and our program feed that's coming from our ATEM. And then finally, this back screen is just the Web Presenter HD's status thing that it displays to kind of give you an idea of what the bit rate is and if you're live and all those kinds of things. It's really handy. Other things you see here, we have an old iPhone that's just running an alarm app. That's all it's doing, and it flashes the screen at them, I think 10 minutes before or 5 minutes before, to tell them to start recording. We could do all that through Companion and all that stuff, but sometimes I just don't trust the automation that much, so I kind of like having it just like a hard reminder, guys, push the button. We have these little remotes are what we use to power on and off everything in our area, all intelligent lights, all of our Teradek Ace 500s and other HDMI transmitters, things like that that we don't want on all week. You could probably get Alexa enabled ones and stuff like that, but I don't really want people saying Alexa and doing things like that. So these are just like little, I guess, RF remotes. BN link, I can link these in the description. We've also got some remote control for one of our cameras that's on a Bestcore MP101 that he can move the angle of that. And other inputs that we use occasionally are an Apple TV if we want to do some wireless like giveaways where we hit a button on our phone and it shows all the names swirling around. We've used that and put that up on the screen. Now, to be honest, we don't actually use the second ME yet because we don't do iMag in the room. We're not really worrying about that as much. I know we could use that for our projector content, but right now we just choose what we want on the projector based on that output within the software, since we rarely put anything else up on the screen other than just our Mac feed from ProPresenter, the full screen, ProPresenter feed. But speaking of ProPresenter, Pro 7 is our workhorse. We make it do a lot of stuff. Sometimes we ask too much of it, I think, but it allows us to do so many things automatically with the different audience looks, sending out different feeds with key and fill to the ATEM to automate when things should be on the stream full screen, when they're not, all done just automatically with the click of a button or a macro. So Pro 7 is being run on a Mac Studio with an Asus Art display. We also have the Sonnet chassis with the Decklink Duo card in there. That's how we're able to send full screen, key, fill, and a hallway announcement feed all over SDI out of that box. We also have some other stage displays set up just using the Thunderbolt outputs of that computer. One is a vertical stage display for our lighting operators to see the timings of when to change to the next lighting cue. The other is sending to our 4x3 style projection screen that is our confidence monitor for everyone on stage. And so I've been really happy with the flexibility of the Mac Studio. All those extra outputs have been great and handy when we've had to incorporate even more screens at times at Christmas and things like that. So there's times that we're sending separate videos at the same time with one click of a button using Companion and ProPresenter and just the different layers all at just the push of a button. You can watch the video that I'm going to link in the description where I walk you through that. That's the thing about this tour is I've made tons of videos and I'm covering a lot of it. So if you want to dive deeper into a certain topic, just search on my channel or look in the description of this video. I'll try to link to things that I've already done before, but this is like the mega video, the whole tour. Okay, let's talk about cameras. If you've been following the channel for a minute, you know I'm a Panasonic fanboy just because of the versatility and the cost and all those things that I've really enjoyed working with them. This one is our roaming cam. It's probably my favorite shot that we can get. It's a GH5 with a 35-100 2.8 on a Ronin SC gimbal, rocking a Teradek Ace 500. All more budget options in their fields respectively, but when combined, when their powers combine, you get a really, really solid image and unique vantage point for your live stream. Our roamers are walking with this throughout the building. You can kind of get that rhythm track looking shot as they parallax it, twisting the handle as they walk with a good pace there, and really a big fan of it. But quickly, let's break down our other camera stations. Like I said, we got 12 of them, so this might take just a second, but here we go. Starting with our wide shot, it is a Panasonic GH4 with a 20mm pancake lens, and that is just on a magic arm sitting on our pole that is bolted to the ground. Speaking of that pole, we installed a pole that holds our DVX200 as our only broadcast style camera. That is controlled with a Studio One lanc controller. The person who's running our cable cam operation also is our pole cam operator for following our pastor during the sermon. Camera 3 is our Viral Light cable cam. I have a full video on this on my channel as well. It gives us that dactyl cam style shot. Our third camera operator controls wirelessly through a remote control the Moza Air gimbal that is attached to the Viral Light to give us those wider angle shots sweeping behind the crowd and down our angled wall in our worship center. Camera 4 is over in the corner of our worship center, and it is a Panasonic G85 with a Olympus 40-150 f2.8, and it has a PD Live Air movie zoom control unit that continuously zooms the lens in and out automatically over and over, so we can just go to that camera and it's got some movement already built into that shot. It's not manned. I love the sensor stabilization on a G85 when it's sitting on a slider, because the slider's still gonna have some micro jitters, vibrations from subs. We have two slider cameras sitting in a black box at the front row of our worship center. One of them is this shot that is a tight 42.5, equivalent to 85, mil 1.8 that is just tied on me with the projector image behind me, and it's just parallaxing back and forth. And then the second G85 that's above it on the second GVM 48-inch track is sitting on a Bescore MP101, which can be controlled all the way from back here just by linking those remote cables together through our pipe underneath the ground. He can move to which side of the stage he wants it on for which girl is leading. It's me in the center, two girls on each, a girl on each side. And that is a 12 to 35 Panasonic f2.8 lens. All of our cameras, lenses, exposure and focus are pretty much set. Unless they're manned, then focus is the only thing that's really being changed. So we have controlled lighting conditions. We're able to get away with that. No live shading or anything like that. The other two manned cameras are both GH5s with Panasonic 35 to 100 f2.8 lenses. One's on a gimbal like I showed you. The other is just handheld on the side of our stage. They both are using Teradek Ace 500s, my favorite zero latency wireless transmission system. Runs you about $1,000. Sorry, it's the cheapest you can find really that I have tested. Then on stage we've got a piano cam, which is Z-Cam E1, discontinued camera. It uses a GH4 sensor. It's on a newer slider that I found off Marketplace here locally for $100. It just kind of scoots back and forth, adds some interest to that piano shot. On our drum set we have another GVM 48-inch slider. Links below. It's got a Panasonic G7 with a Tokina 11 to 16, which is a APS-C style lens, but we've combined that with a Viltrox speed booster, focal reducer, and it adds even more pop to that lens. Works really well for a drum cam shot, wide angle parallaxing shot. We have another Z-Cam E1 that's being used just to catch the tom side of the drum set. If we want to pop over there to that side, we can do that as well. It's got a 35 millimeter, I think it's a 7 artisan lens on it. It's manual focus. It's just set it and forget it right back there. During our preaching time, our pastor uses a TV, so we have a shot just set up just to bail to for that. It is a GH4 with a Canon 70 to 200 f2.8 with Metabone speed booster, so it's down to f2.2, and it's just set at the right spot. We just leave it alone. No one's messing with it. It's just for that TV when he's addressing scripture and points like that. Whew, that's a lot of camera stuff. For our directors to talk to our camera guys, we are still using these Came TV units, the Communicate headsets. That's been their favorites. I've got some Hollyland sitting in the closet that we're going to be doing some more testing with. I don't think you can go wrong really with any of the three. The Came TV Communicates, the Hollyland C1s, or the Old Faithful's EarTech Ultralights. We've had them all. We've liked them all. Right now we're still using the Came TV ones. A couple of other details about our video system that you might care about. We're running everything at 2997, 1080p. On the cameras, shooting in 4K, sending out in 1080 allows us to do a little punch in when we want to get an extra tighter shot. Crop in there on that. One thing that the ATEM 2ME did cause that I still haven't quite figured out is it introduced a little bit of latency between everything going to our projector. It's just straight Belden 1694A SDI everywhere in our house, especially going from the back of the ATEM straight up to the projector. And I don't think it's a converter that's hitting them before the projector, because that didn't change. But when we switched from a TV Studio 8, which didn't have converters on every input like this does, frame rate converters, even though we're all 2997, something's happening. It was introducing about 5 frames delay. So we've had to delay our audio at the M32 from ProPresenter to match up whenever we shoot videos with people talking and things like that. So that's the only issue we've really had. It's a little annoying that the 2ME doesn't have any HDMI outputs, so you have to have a few SDI to HDMI converters for your screens and things like that. But overall, we're happy with it for now. I'm sure I'll change things next week. Our lighting system has evolved in the last 13 years from being just button boxes on the wall with dimmable house lights to what it is today. So currently we are using Jans Vista version 3 with just 2 universes to run everything. One universe is essentially running all of our house lights that are just dimmable LEDs that are retrofitted into these canisters. They actually work pretty well. They're TCL bulbs. I wish they were a little higher on the color temperature. They're like 3500, so that can kind of mess with things because we're trying to get our white balance up to about 4200 to 4500. It kind of gets down into 42 pretty quickly because all of our key lights are pretty much Source 4 Junior lights. They're old school bulbs that we gel with half CTB to try and get that color temperature up, but that causes us to lose a little bit of brightness. So looking forward to upgrading all of our key lighting to LED eventually, but for now we are using some bolder zoom par moving lights to kind of supplement in those areas, and I've loved those. I'll link those in the description to the actual lights and a review I've done of those, testing those. Looking to get more of those. They're similar to the Chauvet Rogue lights, I think, is what they are kind of mimicking, but been pretty happy with those. Our stage design has not changed really in about the last 3 years, minus putting some snowflakes up and stuff for Christmas. It, I think, is able to do that because it's multi-look. Like we have lots of LED tape that we've installed on modular sticks, but we have lots of Edison bulbs that we've added and wash tub Edisons and things like that to have some more warmer looks. Or we have the ability to just wash some scenic pieces that have the window screening on them, whether it's our crosses or walls or whatever it may be. So that flexibility, I think, allows us to not get tired of it and allows us to be more creative as we're designing looks for the service. Now, the way we run things in the service is our tech director now, thank the Lord, I don't have to do it anymore. He comes in and designs all the lights on a weekly basis in one queue list in Jans Vista that our lighting operator simply clicks the play button on our M1 to advance the timeline. Now we do sometimes use MIDI coming from ProPresenter timelines to hit our cues at the exact right times, but 95% of the time is manually clicked. And you can see that we got the cues here on this screen. That is based on the operator notes in our ProPresenter file. Like I said, we use ProPresenter to do so much, and we run all of our tracks that are just a stereo track that are pre-mixed out of the timeline function of ProPresenter. And then I'm controlling the starting and stopping of those timelines with a MIDI foot pedal on stage that I'll show you in just a minute. But as far as lighting goes, on stage we've got a bunch of Chauvet Intimidator 255 IRCs. We have some more bolder RGBW zoom pars. We have a couple GMAX 150s, lots of Edison bulbs that are dimmable, LED tape. Probably the main fixture that people have asked about is our big LED crosses that we built. I have a full video on that, breaking down how we did that as well. So check that out in the description. One key piece of our lighting puzzle that we realized we had to put a little more money into was our hazer. So in the last couple years, we purchased the Ultratech Radiance hazer. It's still a budget-friendly water-based hazer. I think it was about $800 if I remember correctly. One thing I love about it is the haze is very fine. We had a lot of cloudiness with our old AmHaze 2 from Chauvet that I just didn't like, even with like 17 fans trying to disperse it around. It was dumb. The Ultratech does a lot better job with that, and we're on our second bottle of fluid. Like after 2 years of using this thing, it's crazy. It just barely sips the fluid. And by about 10 minutes into our sermon, the haze is pretty much gone in our room. And I think for our setting, that's been good because we turn the house lights on once message starts. But that's one thing I would tell you. You can get cheaper lights if you get great haze, because it just kind of makes the bad lights appear stronger and better. The beams, pop more with that better haze in the room. So don't skimp on your hazer. Let's do a little walk and talk in our media booth just to point out some other things we got going in there. As you walk in, our second level, the top tier, is where our director will sit whenever they're directing our camera ops. Kind of talked about all this stuff already. We do have a secondary station over here. This is where our photographers come and they can edit their photos during second service message in Lightroom, and they go ahead and upload those straight to SmugMug. That's where we keep all of our photos for church. This little device right here is something we're trying out. It is the YOLO Live InStream for streaming to Instagram and TikTok. Haven't gotten the chance to try it yet, but it's set up ready to go. And then over here, we've just got our Teradek Ace 500 unit on this side to get our roamer station. On this wall, we have our charging dock bay set up that we built to just have a little cleaner area for all of our NPF batteries that we use for things, our gimbal batteries, and then our GH cameras batteries, and just some little bins to hold things, and a shelf. Underneath, we've just got a fridge for some water and some LEDs just to kind of light up, with black curtains hiding all of our mess. I will link to these chairs. We've really liked them. They're pretty lightweight. They roll around okay. They hold everybody. And they've got the arms that go up and down, so whenever you're going up underneath the table, or maybe you're sitting here and you need armrests or no armrests, you got that flexibility. Host mics for pre-service. Down means there's no battery, don't use it. Up means yes, it's good to go. And we've got just another charging station here for our Came TV headsets. That's a little janky recorder that can record the multi-view. It's just looped through. I wouldn't recommend it though. And who says Baptist hymnals aren't of use anymore? Great for propping multi-views. Down here on the lower level, like I said, we've got our audio land. This is just recording multi-track audio and playing Spotify. Then this is just our rack that doesn't really get touched much. This is where our third camera operator sits that controls the cable cam. So right here is our cable cam, and they've got a little remote where they can, if I turn it on, as it's going back and forth, they can pan and tilt. So like, let's say they want to tilt it down, and then as it's going, they can just push to the left and keep things centered, and they'll use that just wirelessly. And then the other part that they'll use is this Studio One lanc controller for our DVX 200 up there. So that is just for preaching. We've got this long conduit pole that I've attached onto the existing arm. That's all sitting on this pole that we have bolted into the ground, so that way they can follow cam. Right here they've got this monitor, and this monitor down here is showing what's live. This is hallway feed currently right now. All these screens you see right here for Pro Presenter is just front projector, rear projector, main ASUS display, lighting, stage display. This little guy right here is for our teleprompter. When lighting gets done with lights and their time for sermon, he actually runs a teleprompter app on his MacBook that goes to this TV on the front of our booth right below our camera. So when he looks at his teleprompter, it looks like he's looking at his camera, and that has a film on it that we added. So the viewing angle you can't see from those sides of our worship center, only straight on can you see that. That was a big pain in the butt, but it's great now that it works. And as I said, we do use Stream Decks for firing some certain things like video announcement looks, soundboard to the ATEM, lobby announcements, those kinds of things. For microphones, we're still using these 9-volt ANSMAN batteries. Been pretty happy. They just work for us throughout a couple services and rehearsal. Okay guys, for the rest of the tour, I think I'm going to do more walk and talk, just going up to our stage, talking through our different instrument stations, what we have going on as we capture things at the source. So starting with my station here, as we go up front and center, I've got this fun little on-stage mic stand that has its own base that's cast iron that I've got my air step sitting on. This is how I control all of the firing of the MIDI cues to the Pro Presenter timeline. That's all just over this Cat 5 cable with this little MIDI converter. And then this is my pedal that I'll link to the video, but whenever I press it, you see that light that came on at the sound booth. This is now going to them back there, and then when I press it again, now it's out of the house speakers at this point. Moving on to drums, we've done a full breakdown of this set on the channel, but it's a DW set. Here is our little slider cam that's set up. We do have a Roland SPD SX, and then a Black Beauty impersonator. We got Heartbeat cymbals, custom dries, and a Heartbeat Epic ride. Aquarian, Kickhead, Evans, G2s for the toms, Pearl, Remo, with just a little bit of treatment there for the snare. My dad is always tweaking stuff. As far as miking the drums, we have an assortment of mics, whether that is this Audix kit that we have used on certain toms, a 57 for the snare top and bottom. We've got an old pair of Audio-Technica 37Rs for our what you would call cymbal mics, overheads. They're kind of just mirrored here though on each side of the set. We didn't really want to have some kind of big tall mic stand, so we went with just one on each side, and it captures a pretty good image of the kit. These really are not being used for in the room much. It's mostly for stream. And we have Beta 52 on the kick. Our bass players are just running into this MXR bass DI, and it's just giving you a little bit more amp type sound out of it. They can add a distortion channel on there if they so please. For keys, we have two players, one right here that plays string parts on our Roland RD700X, and then here I've done a full breakdown on this piano rig setup, but we're running main stage inside the shell, and we have a dual screen setup to where on this screen they can see a dual page layout of music stand running in in Planning Center, and then here would be main stage and a Planning Center lineup. That's all being fed through a Mac Mini, and they've got their monitoring stuff there. It's just a Casio CDP-120, I think, for the key bed. That's really just a MIDI controller, but I'll link to that full video in the description if you're interested in that setup. Our lead electric players are all running direct. They all use different things. Our main player uses a Helix. We've got some that use Axe effects and others that use Kempers, so it's all just coming in direct from their boards. We used to have a big amp cabinet backstage, but we've gotten rid of that. But speaking of backstage, let's take a look. I'll show you all of the craziness and maybe some storage solutions you might think are good. Before we go backstage, here's our little behind the trough look. Don't tell the fire marshal. We've got all our cables hidden behind the wall. You know, if you can't control it, just hide it. But as we go behind our false wall here that we built, you can see we just got some seating and some storage area with water bottles. They do organize our packs for each singer, so that way when they come in, they're ready to go with their microphone and packs. And then we've got our battery charging station here. Sorry, that's really dark. But a little battery spindle there for charged batteries. And that's pretty much it back here. We do utilize the old shoe rack storage on the door as well for some random microphones and things like that. Peeking backstage on the other side, this is where our preaching TV lives that we roll out there. And then our hazer also lives back here on this side with a couple of fans to kind of help disperse what all's going on here. So we're just shooting haze up into the room that way. I'm not even going to waste your time looking at our audio racks backstage. They're a mess. They're hard to get to. There's not much to them. It's just amps for our speakers and dimming control of our house lights. So not much to it. We do have this storage area that we're beginning to kind of organize things, cables. We got monitor land there, but this will be great. This used to be a janitor area, closet stuff. So we're getting there, getting some things organized. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that tech tour. And it really all comes back to what our mission is as a worship and tech ministry. And that is to do things with excellence, authenticity, while we create biblical avenues for people to worship Jesus. We can use technology to help tell the story of the gospel. One thing that we have painted on our walls, on the back wall of our media booth, it says, "You are a worship leader." And that's something I've been trying to hammer home to everybody that serves on my teams. No matter if you're pushing a button, doing lighting, directing cameras, playing or singing, you are leading worship. And so let me encourage you, if you're in charge of one of these areas at your church, man, you are a worship leader. It's not just the people on the platform. So give it everything you got. Work as if you're working for the Lord, because that's what it's all about. We're serving Him. Because like I always say, it's all about doing great things for God's glory. If you enjoyed this tech tour, do me a favor, hit the like button right now. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We've got tons of other content here on the channel. Like I said, I'll link to a lot of stuff in the description of this video if you want to go deeper in one of those areas, one of those videos that I've already made talking about something here on the channel. But until next time, let's keep doing great things for God's glory.